when the culture is laid out clearly and everybody knows what the parameters are and someone is thorough about enforcing it, then people respect it. Now, if you say there's a culture, but you don't enforce it, then that's not real. Right?
Yeah.
I tell my audience all the time, and especially entrepreneurs, unenforced rules are just suggestions. Nobody's going to follow it if you're not enforcing it.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it.
Today we're joined by the CEO and founder of Work on Your Game Incorporated, Dre Baldwin. Dre has given 4 TED Talks and authored 33 books. He's published over 8,000 videos, and his content has been viewed more than 73 million times. In just 5 years, Dre went from the end of his high school team's bench to a 9-year professional basketball career. He invented his Work on Your Game framework as a roadmap in reverse to help professionals with mindset, strategies, accountability, and execution. Check out dreallday.com to learn more about his systems and strategies. Before we hear from Dre, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast.
What's going on, Matt? How are you?
Dre, how are you, man?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Oh, it is awesome to meet you in person. I got to say, blown away. I had to go home and show my wife. Blown away by the video that you sent. I've been doing this for about 2 years. I've just never seen something that professional and well done. So, man, that was impressive.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm glad it worked.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing this time of year.
Well, I do the same thing all year round. So right now, just working on a university. So that's Work on Your Game University. That's my coaching program. It's our main offer over here. So getting people in, mostly entrepreneurs, business professionals, people who are transitioning into entrepreneurship.
Awesome. Well, man, I'm really excited to have this talk because it typically is with coaches, basketball coaches at different levels. But I also love getting to talk to guys that have played, and then always love getting to talk leadership, habits, culture, which that's what you're all about. And so, man, thank you. This is an honor for me.
Well, I'm excited to be here as well, and I appreciate you extending your platform and sharing the opportunity. So looking forward to this.
Well, man, first of all, super impressive getting to learn a little bit about your history. You know, being a walk-on at any level is difficult. And I had some great teammates where I played that were walk-ons, and really the selflessness that they had. And so for you doing that at a D3 college, but then creating a 9-year professional basketball career out of that, like, that's incredible, man. So I would imagine you're somebody that has pretty impressive daily habits. What daily habits set you up for success?
Man, that's a great question. We could do a whole hour just talking about that alone. So when it comes to daily habits, for me, the first part of my day is always pretty much scripted out. So I used to call it my 8 a.m. list. And I don't think of it that much anymore, but I still have it, meaning I wake up at about a little bit before 4 a.m., so about 3:45 a.m. And the first 4 hours of my day are pretty much the same thing every day. So wake up, workout, yoga, meditation, drink water, then whatever my workout is. So I might be running outside, might go to the boxing gym. This is where basketball used to fit in, just got replaced by running outside, boxing gym, foam roll, stretch, might go to the jacuzzi, depending on where I'm living at the time. There is one available, as long as the water's hot. Do that, get dressed, cleaned up, have my protein shake, and then I'm usually starting working sometime between 7:30 and 8 a.m. So the first 3.5 to 4 hours of my day, I guess people now will call that self-care, but that's all the stuff that I do to take care of myself, get myself set up for the day. So then for the rest of the day, I can do things like have these conversations and kind of do, I guess, what we call office work. So yeah, I guess that's the world that I'm in now.
Golly, 3:45 to 4. I mean, like every day, like 7 days a week. Do you take any time? And is that difficult for you?
On the weekends, it gets pushed back a couple hours. I might let myself get a couple extra hours, but the first 3.5, 4 hours, first thing I do is always the workout, take care of myself, foam roll, yoga, stretch, all of that stuff.
And you've been doing that since you were playing? Well, is that something that's always been easy for you? or is it a struggle? Like, you're that's your hard thing to do every day is actually getting up that early.
Oh no, that's not hard to do. I actually like doing that. So it was probably around 2009, Matt, that I used to wake up just whenever I woke up, because I was playing ball at the time. So I would wake up in the off seasons, or if I was unemployed at the time, I was waiting for that phone to ring. I would wake up whenever I woke up, and I would go to the gym and work out. But the gym that I was working out at here in Miami is not far from where I live, even to this day. One time they had like a camp, like a summer camp for the kids. And the gym opened at 6, but the camp for the kids started at 7. So they told me that because they knew I would come there. They said, "Hey, Dre, we got a camp starting here next week. It's going to be at 7:00 for the next month." So I was like, all right, well, what can I do? I could either find a different gym to go to, and there wasn't really another good option. I could work out on an outside court, or I can get here at 6:00, get an hour in, and just get out of here before the camp starts. So I started waking up early so I can get to the gym at 6:00. And then I just kept doing it. So even when the camp ended, I said, man, I can get in here early. I can bring and this is when I'm making all these YouTube videos, and I'm bringing my camera with me. I can bring my camera. I can film. There's nobody else in the gym, and I can just film as much as I want. I mean, I was working out, but I was bringing my camera because at this time, this is when YouTube started to pick up. So that's where the habit was. That it was kind of forced upon me. I chose to do it that way because of the situation with the kids camp at the gym. But then I just kept it up. I was like, I like getting up early in the morning so I can kind of get this workout in, and I don't have anybody else around me. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it didn't start there. I lied. It started before this. So this is about 3 years earlier. I'm in Miami, Florida now. So I'm from Philadelphia. Now, I started playing ball coming out of a Division III school. I'm sure we'll talk about that in 2004. And I got out of school in 2004, got my first overseas job in 2005. Got a couple of jobs, came home. I was in 2006 living in Philadelphia. I was living in these apartments called Presidential City. Anybody who's from Philly knows it. A lot of Temple University students is off-campus housing for Temple University students. A lot of Temple kids live there, but regular people live there too. I'm a regular person at this point. I'm living at Presidential City in a studio apartment, or what they call an efficiency. I guess it was an efficiency. It wasn't a studio. It was an efficiency. Right. So I'm living in there, and I worked at this gym called Philadelphia Sports Clubs. Where are you based out of, Matt?
I'm in Dallas-Fort Worth now, but I'm actually from Pennsylvania, 2 hours north of Philly. That's where I grew up. So anyway.
What town?
Berwick, Pennsylvania, small, up by Wilkes-Barre and Scranton.
Okay, I'm familiar with those towns. I mean, I played at Penn State out Abington as a freshman, so we played against Scranton. So I was just in Dallas last week, as a matter of fact. But anyway, so I had this job at Philadelphia Sports Club. I lived on City Line Avenue. Anybody knows the city. You don't have to know the city to understand this. So I worked downtown in Philly. The gym that I worked at was downtown. Now, is a gym. So I like working at a gym because I could use the gym for free.
That's right.
But the thing is, the location that I worked at was in the center part of the city, and it did not have a basketball court. It had weights and all that stuff, but no basketball court. But there was another location that this company also owned that did have a basketball court, and it was the opposite direction from my house to there. And I'm like, all right, I want to use that gym. And it's like 45 minutes away from my home, but it's free. So I'm like, all right, I'll drive 45 minutes to use the gym for free. And it's a beautiful, pristine, beautiful basketball court. Now, I had to be to work from like 8 to 4 every single day. So I'm like, how am I going to make this work? So all I did was just reverse engineer it. So for me to get to work at 8 o'clock in downtown Philadelphia, I need to be in the car driving to work. I need to leave that gym and go start driving an hour before. So I need to leave there by 7, which means I need to shower and get dressed because we had to wear business casual clothing there because it's a corporate owned gym. So I need about 30 minutes for that to get ready. And then I could get a workout in for about an hour. And that gym opened at 5:30 in the morning. Now, again, it's 45 minutes away from my home. But if I'm driving 4 in the morning, it might take about 30 minutes because there's no traffic. So I had to start getting up at 4 in the morning. So I started waking up at 4 a.m. I could get to that gym by 5:30 when it opened, get my workout in until 6:30, shower, get dressed, be in the car by 7 o'clock, drive to downtown Philly, and be at work by 8 o'clock. I did that for the whole time that I was working at that gym. So that's actually where the 4 a.m. thing started, was there. Then when I got to Miami and I didn't have that pressure on me anymore, I kind of got lazy for a little while, and I would wake up whenever I wanted to wake up. And then when that kids camp started, I started waking up early again. And I said, why don't I just start doing this? Why don't I just be the first person to get to the gym when it opens? And then I just kept that routine up moving forward.
Man, I love the idea.
Long answer to a short question.
No, it's good. I love the idea of maximizing that early time, especially like coaches that have families that have little kids, or there has to be that moment in your day where you're able to get some of these goals taken care of. Personally, right now, we're doing weights before school at 6 a.m. So I have to get up at 5:15 to get there on time for the guys. And I'm telling you, that alarm goes off and I feel like I'm back in college, and I'm thinking of all the reasons why I don't have to go to class. Like, I already know this stuff. They don't need me there today. But now I have to be here. So that's a good motivation. But what advice do you have for coaches or people that would like to wake up earlier, but just can't or struggle?
Okay. Yeah. I'm glad you added that.
Yeah, they can. So. They struggle or don't like it. Like, I don't like it.
Right. Okay. So one thing I say to people is, have you ever taken a flight early in the morning? Have you ever taken a flight that left at 7 a.m. from the airport? And people usually say yes. I say, did you make the flight? And they say yes. I say, okay, so you can wake up early. All right. It's not that you can't.
You're right. You're right.
Right. When the schedule is there, you'll get up early. So the thing is really just challenging yourself and pushing yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone. And when you push yourself out of your comfort zone, let's say do something like get up early, get up 2 hours earlier than you're used to. It's not that you can't do it and your body will adjust to it. It's just that you have to make it non-negotiable that you're going to deal with that, let's say that first 3 days or that first week or two where it feels uncomfortable, where you're not used to it, but your body will adjust and it will start being comfortable waking up early. It'll get used to waking up early and it'll become a brand new habit. That's a kind of the simple answer. And you just have to be willing to push yourself through it's kind of like what I call the third day, that struggle of trying to just get yourself to do this new habit and this new routine. And the thing is, Matt, that everybody understands this concept of the comfort zone, right? And you start talking about it, most people can finish your sentence, right? In order for you to get what you want to get in life, you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And everybody agrees with that. And most people know the saying, but then when it comes time to actually do something that's uncomfortable, people don't want to do it.
That's right.
So in order for anyone, any person, whether it's a coach, an athlete, an entrepreneur, anybody in between, they want to build that new habit, you have to get uncomfortable because that's where all the rewards are outside of your comfort zone. And comfort zone is relative. Everyone has a different comfort zone of what's comfortable for them and what's uncomfortable. But if you have relatively good information that doing this thing that is uncomfortable for you is going to help you get to another level, then you have to be willing to go through the challenge or the struggle of it being uncomfortable for a while until it becomes a normal routine thing. And if you give yourself no excuses for it not to happen, then you will make it happen.
What time are you going to bed?
About 8 o'clock.
Man, see, my wife likes to, we wind down about 9:30. We've got either a game on or some things. Before I know it, it's 10:30 or almost 11. And then I'm looking at that 5:15 time, and I know I've got to I can't ask you how do I get my wife and family to start going to bed earlier, but I think that's the key though, time because you're getting up early, but to stay sane and to keep yourself like active and with it throughout the day, you've got to be making sure you get the right amount of sleep, right?
Yeah, over time.
Yeah,
you do ideally, especially if you're using your body or your brain a lot over the course of a day, which most of us do. Now, the thing is, the human body will adjust. If you're a person, like I remember my dad was telling me that for years, he's retired now, but when he was in his active working life, he would sleep like 4 or 5 hours a night with no nap during the day.
Wow.
And he had just adjusted to it because the human body does that. It's great. It adjusts to any situation that you give it. So when I was playing, for example, Matt, I would sleep 4 to 5 hours at night. Then I would take a 2-hour nap in the middle of the day. That was my normal routine. So I would be up till 11 o'clock at night, wake up at 5, go to the gym, work out. And then I'll take a nap around 11, 12 o'clock, wake up, then go to a different gym to get a second workout in. And that was my thing. But then I realized later on, like, hey, I should probably get this whole 8 hours at once is much better for me, much better for my brain and my body. So I probably would have been a lot better player, had I been getting 8 hours of sleep. But I was getting 5 hours most of the time.
Random question for you, because I don't think I've ever asked anybody this, but you do something that to me it's unique. You say Matt, you say my name in your answers. You've done it a few times already today, and it's unique enough to stick out that a lot of guys, I don't do that. I haven't said your name except for the very beginning. Is that something that you're consciously doing, or is there a reason behind it, or is it just, I just talk that way?
It's actually all three. It's all three. It's all three of them, Matt. Because the thing is, I study communication a lot, and this is something that I coach people actually on communication a ton. Whether it comes to sales, leadership, just speaking from stages and things like that. And everybody should understand, every human being's favorite word is their own name.
That's right.
So when you use another person's name, first of all, they know that you're talking to them. Secondly, they are more likely to listen to you when you use their name. This is just a thing that we all can understand. Somebody says your name, they have your attention, at least
That's
for a moment.
Right. Yeah.
Right. While you're saying whatever it is that you're saying. And it also, just in case you're talking to somebody that you just met, the more times you say their name, the more likely you are to remember it. Right.
That's a good nugget.
And you forget their name 5 minutes later. Yeah. So that's why it's become, to answer your question, your third question there, is something that's just become a normal way of me talking because I've done it so often. So at first it was conscious. I had to think about it to remember to do it, but now it's a normal way of talking.
That might be, I always feel like I borrow at least one thing from each of these talks I get to do. And that's a really good nugget, because I do struggle with remembering names. And you're right. Like, the more that you repeat that, and it is something, I think it makes you different, just automatically in this call. Like, you've already stood out because of that.
The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
I've written one book.
Okay.
It took me 5 years to write, and I normally don't mention that at all. And I'm not bragging. The reason I'm bringing that up is I know how hard that is. It took a long time, and it was stressful and all these things. You've written 27. Like, and that's
33 now.
Okay, see, so that's just the number I saw, 33. And then work on your game, and I can see it, for anybody watching the video, I can see it behind that number. It just makes me like my question, I get, how do you do it? But I would imagine, you're constantly learning new things, absorbing new information, following people. So what's one quality that you see in great leaders?
One quality I see in great leaders? Well, there's a lot. But one I would say is accountability, taking accountability for themselves, which qualifies them to hold others accountable. Because anytime you're leading a group of people, you want to hold them accountable. Well, one thing that sometimes somebody might do who you're holding accountable is say, well, hey, you're not doing the thing that you're telling me to do. So you can't yell at your players for being late to practice if you're late to practice.
Yeah.
Right? So it's the accountability is the first thing that comes to mind. But there's probably, there are entire books written on the concept of leadership and the traits of leaders. So I don't know what your book is about, but that's the first thing that comes to mind. But there's probably 100 things we get listed. We talked for long enough.
I like that. That accountability piece is huge. Gannon Baker, big time skill development guy, says that you can't coach something that you don't possess. And,
that's right.
and so for us to expect, we all have cultures and we want to hold the standards with our players. But if we're not living, and so that's convicting though, right? Like, I'm talking to you about habits and how I like to wake up early, but I seem to struggle with that. Well, then how can I expect to ask my players to do hard things or things that they don't really like to do if I'm also struggling to do? But I don't know. Maybe that also the human part of that is good, to let them know that, golly, I struggle with things just the same way that they do, right?
Absolutely. Letting them know that you struggle with it, but then also, since you're the coach, letting them know how you got over it.
Yeah.
How'd you deal with it? How'd you figure it out?
I'm still working on that part, on that side of it. But I wrote down 4 a.m. and the goal tomorrow is 4 a.m.
You gonna wake up at 4 a.m.?
That's it. Are you going to do that? What time are you going tomorrow?
I will be waking up at 3:45. I pushed it back 15 minutes, so actually 3:45 is when I get up.
Dre, I'm going to start at 4. So I wrote that down. I'm going to get that done tomorrow. And the fact that I'm saying it and I'm saying it to you, I think that's a big thing with goals is not just keeping them internally, but sharing them with other people. When you write them down, you share them with another person. There's like going back to accountability. There's more people involved with the vision or dream that you have.
Yeah, that's right. And making sure you're letting people know who can actually help is what I like to tell people. Let somebody know who might have some insight or some ideas, or someone who's already doing it. Like, hey, here's what I did to actually make that work. So it doesn't have to be you just beating yourself up to wake up at 4 a.m, but also how could you possibly, and this probably be a collaborative effort with your wife, how could you possibly restructure your day such that waking up at 4 a.m. is actually supported by what you're doing in the evenings? Because if you're going to bed at 11:30, 12 o'clock, there's only so many times you can get up at 4 a.m.
That's right.
It's not working anymore.
Work is going to suffer. They're going to see the lights off in my office, and I'm just going to be on the floor. I can't be napping all day. How in the world did you write 27 books? How'd you do? Or 33 books? How'd you do that?
Well, it goes right back to what we just talked about with the sleep, believe it or not, Matt. It's structuring things to make it easier to get that work done. So one thing that when you look at anyone who's I guess the phrase we use now is high performance, right? High performers are people who are very productive, or they do something that most people look at and say that's hard to do, but they make it seem easy and they do it routinely. People look at them and think that this person is maybe they're just super talented, or they're superhuman, or they just have this ability that other people don't have. That's usually not the case, even though the person may be talented. Like, so listen, do I have a talent for writing? I do. Do I have a thing when it comes to putting words together? I do. But just that alone is not enough to write a whole bunch of books. What allows me to write that many books is that I've been creating content since what we now call content since 2005. So when I sit down to write a book, Matt, I already have a lot of the material for the book. I've already talked about it before in a video. I might have talked about it on a podcast. I might have written articles about it. I've already thought it out and kind of said it to myself before I sit down and write. And I was just talking about this on in a live stream I was doing the other day. I never, ever am sitting down looking at a blank screen with a blinking cursor. Never. Because when it's time for me to write, I already have the ideas, I already jotted the ideas down. So when it's time for me to write an article, I already have a sentence or two that says, hey, here's what this article is going to be about. Here's the little anecdote or the story, or here's the thing that happened that you're going to write about. So now I just look at that little sentence and say, oh, the pizza place forgot my pizza. They didn't put my order in. And I'm going to relate that back to something about what I do in my business. So when I sit down to write, I already know what story I'm going to tell. I already know what angle I'm coming at with it, because I already had I already thought it out in my head. So all I got to do is just sit down and flesh it out. I just got to get it out in my head and on paper, but I don't have to think of what the idea is going to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's good. I think one thing I've struggled with even doing this podcast, and I think I've heard other coaches say, is, you can go to clinics, you can read books, you can watch videos, and there's just so much great information out there, but you can't do it all. So like with the everything that you take in daily and those thoughts and stuff, what's your process of filtering? How do you decide this is something I'm really going to focus on, something that I'm going to, if you have a program, it's using your program, because I think that's something I struggle with. There's Don Meyer, great coach, said there's so many great ways to do it. You just can't do them all.
Right. That's a great question. And actually, I was just talking about this yesterday. So it's having different platforms or just filtering out. So you can either have multiple platforms like me. If you're a person who likes to use the internet a ton, are you a big internet user, like social media, publishing, different platforms?
I do my best.
Okay. So I have all these different platforms that I publish to, from short to long. So let's just say I get an idea, like there was something that I posted, like I send out this text message every morning called the Daily Motivation for free to a bunch of people in my text community, and a text message, so it's like the most you can send for one segment is 160 characters, right? And you pay for each text. So I make sure it's 160 or less, right? Because if it's more, then it counts as 2 texts, and you send this to thousands of people, those prices go up. So anyway, I sent out this text a couple of weeks ago. It said, there's no reward or trophy for doing your job. That's what you're supposed to do. Something along those lines. That was the text. Now, that was a thought that I had, that I said, okay, this is the thought. It can fit into 160 characters. I send it as a text message. Now, what if I want to expound on that and I want to talk about that thought for 8 minutes? Okay, I'll make a YouTube video about it. Now, what if I want to expound on that even more, and I want to give people like 3 or 4 points that go underneath that overall thought? Okay, now I might do a solo podcast episode about that exact subject. What if I want to write about it even more and I want to go even deeper on it and I want to make sure people really, really get this? Okay, I might make it a chapter in my next book. Or what if I think this is a really, really big idea? I want to make this a strategic part of my entire brand. Hey, I might write a whole book on the subject. The whole point is I have different sized buckets, let's just say, for the size of the idea. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I might have an idea that the idea might only be big enough for a text message. I don't want to expound on it. It's just I'm going to send it as a text and I will not go any deeper on that thought. That's all I want to say as a text. Or I might have something that's so big, like let's say the concept work on your game. I might want to write a whole book about it. I can't fit it into a text because it's too much I have to say. So it won't even fit into the text bucket, but it will fit into the book bucket. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
that's good.
Based on the size of the idea, I have different platforms through which I can express that idea. And that's me. But I have these different platforms. Now, somebody else, maybe they only have a YouTube channel. So now your thought, you can't have a 10-second thought. You probably don't want to put out a 10-second YouTube video. Probably not going to work. But now you got to, any thought you have, you got to make it fit into the range of whatever you do in your videos. Maybe it's 30 minutes, maybe it's 10. But I have these different lanes. And because social media provides us these platforms, first of all, you got to have the platforms in place so that you know where this is going to go. But any idea I get, first of all, I write it down. And then I decide, what is this going to be? It's going to be an article, a YouTube, a tweet. Is it going to be a text message? Is it going to be a chapter in a book? Am I going to write a whole book about it? Am I going to do a keynote speech about it? Am I going to try to do a TED talk on it? Well, who knows? Right? But I have these different ways that I can get the idea out.
I think for a lot of coaches probably listening to what you just said, their immediate thought was, golly, like that sounds like a lot of work. Like, how do you actually get all that done? But I think it goes back to how we started the talk with those daily habits and being organized, like actually having time built in your schedule. Like a very small scale is like for this podcast that I'm doing. I've been trying to figure out, because I'm just a basketball coach that loves talking hoops, loves talking culture and learning new ideas about that. But knowing how to put things out on social media and timing, blessed to have a few sponsors that actually wanted to partner up with me that I already had those relationships in the basketball world. But part of my deal with them was I would put out a post about their company, their brand once a week. Well, it's amazing. That's a small thing, but if you don't have it scheduled out of when you're doing it, man, it's easy for the day to go by and be like, golly, I didn't post that. And so to me, doing what you're doing, and I love that idea of breaking it up. And I need to get more organized with what I hear, jot things down more, go back over and really put into categories. I think that's a good nugget. But being organized to me seems like the key.
Yes. And it's 2 things that you said there. I want to make sure I catch both of them. Is number one, with the, making sure that you get the word out about your sponsor. But there was something that you said there that I think your players and everybody listening to this should notice. And you weren't even emphasizing this, but you have sponsors for your podcast. And the sponsorship world is not about your eloquence or how great your material is. It's about relationships, right? And that's what you said. You have relationships with people that you were able to get them as sponsors. And the thing is, and athletes should really understand this. I try to tell athletes this all the time, that at some point, you're no longer the guy on the court or the field or the track or in the pool. And the fact that you used to be an athlete, nobody cares. All right, because nobody cares about a former athlete.
Yeah.
So the question is, who are you now? And in that time that you were that guy or that girl in the sport, did you leverage that? And I tell athletes this. I remember I was speaking to the G League, the players in the G League. And I told them, like, the fact that you play in the G League is like a passport, because it gets you into rooms and gets you into conversations that people otherwise will not have with you. But because you play in the G League, they want to talk to you. Did you cultivate and leverage those relationships to where when you stop playing, they'll still take your call? That matters a ton, because you're coaching at the high school level, right?
Yep.
So some of your players, maybe a handful of them, will go and play that sport in college. Most of them won't.
Most won't.
So,
yeah.
Right. So did you leverage the fact that you played a sport? Can you go and call one of your old assistant coaches for a business connection 5 years from now? Can you call your old head coach? Do you have that relationship? Can you call one of your past teachers when you were in school? Did they have a favorable opinion of you? Those relationships matter the most. That's the biggest thing, especially in the business world that I'm in now as an entrepreneur. This is all about relationships. Yes, you need to be good at what you do, but there are a lot of people who are good that nobody knows, and they can't sell because they don't have the relationships. Business is all about relationships. So in sports, it's a meritocracy because you have a scoreboard, and the scoreboard is objective. Scoreboards don't have opinions, but human beings have a lot of opinions. So in the business world, it's all about, yes, you need to be good, but the first question is, do I know this person? Do I like them? After that, then the question is, are they good? That's the third question. It's not the first question, it's the last question. So that relationship thing, I know you weren't even trying to.
No, that's good though. Yeah.
That's a very big thing.
Yeah, and I think then the attitude of service comes in right after that, because you can, it really, I think people find out real quick of why you're trying to build that relationship with them. If it's just to get something or to use them to further something that you're doing, but you come at it with a relationship of I'm actually here to serve and to make you better. I think when you do that, man, those relationships go deeper. And in the long run, you might actually be able to get not selfishly more out of that relationship, but they'll be more willing to buy into whatever you're selling at that time.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with it being selfish. I mean, we all understand this is what we're in business for. I mean, the purpose of business is to make money, right? And they understand that. They know that. They know they're there to make money, and you're there to make money. So if you're giving them what they want, to paraphrase the late, great Zig Ziglar, you give other people everything they want, you get everything you want. So they understand the deal, and they're happy with it as long as they're winning and you're winning. So a win-win situation, we're all happy.
Culture is a buzzword that is thrown around a lot I mean, you look at a new coach that gets hired at a school, and he says, hey, we're going to play really fast, or we're going to have a great culture. Like, those are the two things. And sometimes it's true. A lot of times it might not be true, but that's the goal. So how does culture drive performance?
Great question. First of all, every entity needs to have a culture, and it should be clearly defined, and everybody should know exactly what it is. And whether that's a business culture, or in business by I mean a team, a group, a family, there's a culture for that. And each individual person needs to have their own culture, usually, which is a set of principles. And I was just talking about this to a coaching cohort of mine just 2 days ago, is that your principles they are etched in stone. These are non-negotiable. They do not change. Every human being should know exactly what their principles are. They should be able to list them out. These are my principles. This is what I'm about. This is what I will not bend on this. This is not negotiable. We're not even having a conversation about it. This is what it is. And a business should have the exact same thing. They should have a list of principles, because the principles, they are a reflection of the culture. And that culture is based on the way that people show up. What do people expect when they walk into the room? What is okay? What's not okay? It's kind of like years ago, and there was a lot of debate about this, and probably still is to this day, but I believe it was Giuliani, when he was the mayor of New York. He talked about the broken window theory, that if there's a broken window in an abandoned building and nobody fixes the broken window, then somebody else is going to break another window. Then they'll throw trash on the ground. Then they'll put graffiti on the wall. And then before you know it, the whole neighborhood is going to garbage, because everybody sees that, okay, nobody cared about that one. I might as well do something else and do something else and do something else. And it's a reflection, again, whether you agree with the concept or not, the point is accurate, and that is a reflection of the culture. So if I walk into a neighborhood and I see that people are throwing trash on the ground and nobody holds that person accountable, or there's a broken window and nobody comes and fixes it, or there's a graffiti on the wall, nobody cleans it up, I say, okay, well, this is what these people think of the neighborhood. This is what people think of their community. They're all right with it. Then, all right, that's telling me something about this community. Do I want to be here or do I not? And it's the exact same thing with a business. How are people walking in there? How are customers talking to their employees? How are players showing up? When I was in college, I had a coach, one of my coaches, they didn't all do this. I had 3 different coaches in college, but one of them said, when you get he said, every day when we have practice, if I say practice at 4:00, you need to be on the court, dressed and ready to go 15 minutes before the scheduled start time. So if I say 4:00, you need to be on the court and ready at 3:45. If you walk on the court ready at 3:55, you are late for practice, even though it was 4:00. You need to have your jersey tucked in. They gave us practice gear. You have to wear our practice gear. Your jersey must be tucked in and no jewelry. And if you violate any of those, you are late. You are off code, and there's going to be a penalty for it. And everybody adhered to it because he set the culture from the very beginning. He told us that before we even started practicing. He told us what the culture was. And when the culture is laid out clearly and everybody knows what the parameters are and someone is thorough about enforcing it, then people respect it. Now, if you say there's a culture, but you don't enforce it, then that's not real. I tell my audience all the time, and especially entrepreneurs, unenforced rules are just suggestions. It's not a rule. If you're
Will you say that one more time?
Unenforced rules are merely suggestions. Nobody's going to follow it if you're not enforcing it. And I had other coaches who never said, this is what we're doing. This is how it works. So we pretty much kind of did what we wanted to do. And so it's a matter of how do you want to do things. And it's the same thing when it comes to human beings. What is your personal culture? Is your culture that, hey, I'm waking up every morning, regardless of what I did the night before, and this is the time I'm waking up and this is when I start work. If you set that as your personal culture, then it's not negotiable. It's not something that you're saying, I might do it, I might not. Let me see how I feel. No, you say, this is what it is. This is how I'm living, and this is how I'm going to do things. And when you give yourself no out clauses, the interesting thing about human beings, when we give ourselves no out clauses to get something done, usually we get it done. And that's the mentality, and I call it the bulletproof mindset. That's the mentality that allows people to kind of raise their standards in life, but you have to set it as a standard. A standard, again, is you can't go below a standard. A standard is this is the floor. Nothing can go below this. And if you have anything that's below this, don't even bring it to us. That's what culture is about.
So much to unpack there. I don't think I've ever, in all these talks about culture with coaches, never looked at it as, what are my principles? Like we focus a lot on the culture of our program, of our team. We have words, we have things that we live by, phrases that we say, but hopefully it goes deeper than just what you have on the back of a t-shirt, right? But
that's right.
I've never thought about it like, what are mine? So I wrote that down. Like, I'm 41 years old. What are my principles? And I thought maybe I wonder if I'd ask my wife or some of my closest friends, like, what do you feel like my principles are? I wonder what they would say. Like, I wonder what they would see in me. Is it just about basketball, or is it about things that translate and go deeper than that? I don't know.
That's right. And there's I'm not sure how much you follow other sports. You follow football?
Yeah.
College football? Okay. Yeah. So you remember about a month or two ago, there was a little bit of discussion when Deion Sanders was talking on the NFL Network about the kind of players he likes to recruit. And some people got mad at him because he was talking about who he wants. And he wants players from 2-parent homes, and he wants his quarterback to have had a father at home and someone who has been under the authority of a man. And some people got mad about that because they felt like he was kind of touching on stereotypes. But the whole thing was, whether people agree with it or not, what Deion was laying out is, here are the principles of who we want. And as the coach, he's kind of in charge. So he can want who he wants, whether he announces it or not. That's what he wants. And he was laying out the principles for the kind of player he is looking for. Now, would he be willing to make an exception? Probably, because we know college sports is all about recruiting.
Yeah.
Right? You get the most talent. You got to get who you got to do what you got to do. But the whole point was he was letting everybody know, here's the kind of player that I want on my team. And every coach, especially at the collegiate level, where recruiting is the game. I don't care how good of the X's and O's you are. If you can't get talent, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
Right. You need talent to win at the college level. Every coach has that. Now, they don't all go announce it on TV like Deion did, but they all have that, and they know exactly what they want and what they don't want. And that's how they are building their programs, because they want to build a reputation. Like, this kind of person comes to a place like this. And businesses, we need to do the same thing. And any organization needs to do that exact same thing. Here's how we do things around here. Even people in communities. So somebody lives in the community for a long time. Hey, there's a certain way that there's a certain type of person we want in this community. And there are communities in America where to even move in, you have to be approved. You can't just move in. You can't just buy a house. You have to be approved by the people who are already there. And if they don't like how you show up, you can't buy the house, no matter how much money you have. So they're making it clear, this is who we want and this is who we don't want.
I think so many times coaches are guilty of walking into a new season and just setting the culture here. Now, I'm not talking about standards as far as like showing up on time, even though that is a part of it. But let's just say you have a group of words or an acronym or something, a system that you're used to, that you like. They come in and they set it and they tell their players, this is who we are. and this is how this is how we're going to talk. This is we're going to show up. And sometimes the players, if it aligns, that's great. Like if it aligns with their personal principles, that's awesome. And then I've seen sometimes where the kids don't really care about the same things that I care about. What do you think about an activity where, like you just said, this is who we are, this is how we're going to show up, where you bring them into that almost like in a co-creator role of, not that they're driving the bus, but they're on it with you. And if they can be a little bit more co-creators of it, maybe we get more buy-in. What are your thoughts on that?
That's a good idea. I think it needs to come from the leaders, whoever the leaders are within that team, because in sports, and this is especially true at the amateur levels, college and high school, is that the coach can't be the strongest voice in the locker room. If the coach is the strongest voice in the locker room, that team's not going to be performing at its best. So somebody, player-wise, has to be a leader. And I'm sure you know as a coach, they always had that concept of coach on the floor, right? Who's that player that the coach, if you need to get a message to the team, but you think they might not want to hear it from you, who can you give it to that they can get the message to the rest of the players? There needs to be some player leadership, and teams that succeed the most have player leadership, where there's players in the locker room when the coach is not around are holding their teammates accountable. And any team where I've been on a lot of teams, any team where that did not happen, that team was mediocre. And any team where it did happen, that team performed at a pretty high level. And I was on some teams with some talented players, but we didn't have that kind of internal leadership, and holding myself accountable included. Those teams didn't perform at their highest possible level. So to answer your question here, it would be, let's say if you had 2 captains or 3 captains on your roster, you meet with them and say, hey, what do you all think about this? Because if you can get them to buy in, then they'll get everybody else to buy in.
Yeah.
Right. And that's really where it comes from. The players they're talking to each other more than they're talking to you anyway. Right. And they're talking behind your back after you get done talking anyway.
So true.
It's what are they saying when you're not in the room? That's what matters the most, not what you say.
That's good.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here.
I always like to ask coaches what's one thing that makes their program different. But when I say program with you, work on your game. What makes it different?
What makes work on your game different is that, especially when it comes to talking to entrepreneurs, is that I come from a background of playing sports. So sports is a performance culture, and performance culture means it's about performance-based business, meaning to stay in business or to win business, you must perform and you must produce results. Performance and results. That's what we're basing everything on. And if you don't produce results, you're out of business, or you lose business, or you lose money, or you're out of the game. And at the same time, sports has a scoreboard, meaning there needs to be objective measures for what's working and what's not working. It's not just going off our feelings, not just going off of our emotions. At the same time, there's a game plan and there's a system, meaning we have a game plan of what we want to do, and we want to create a system such that we can produce the same results the same way every single time. So these are all things that I took from the sports world and translated over to the business world. And these are things that I help people with. And then you have the concept of accountability, because everybody needs accountability. And in the business world, a lot of people want to be held accountable. They want someone who they know every Tuesday, I'm going to get on a call with Dre. He's going to say, okay, here are the 7 things you were supposed to do since last week. Did you do them? Did you not? And if they didn't do them, they know that there's going to be a conversation we're going to have about that. They're going to be held accountable for what they didn't do. Then we're going to set benchmarks for what you need to do before the next time we talk. And then they're going to follow through and do that. And there are many high performers. And I work with people who earn the high 6 figures and the 7 figures. They want to be held accountable. And people might think that if somebody's making a lot of money, they must have everything perfect. Absolutely not. On the contrary, it's usually those people who are performing at the highest who want more accountability. That's how they got there. Right? That's how they got to that level, because they want to be held accountable. And I'm sure, Matt, as a coach yourself, the best players that you've coached are the ones who want to be held accountable the most. Right? They're the ones coming to you and saying, Coach, what can I get better at? What else can I do to improve my game? Where do you think I'm slipping? All right, the people who perform at the highest level are the ones who usually want accountability the most. They are the ones who need motivation the least, but they're always looking for ways to improve, and they're always asking, "Hey, what can I do better? Where am I slipping? Where can I improve? Can I get keys to the gym? Can I get into the weight room?" They're always looking to improve and make themselves better. Now, there's a book called The Slight Edge that is pretty much about this whole concept. Who is practicing that slight edge? Usually, it's the highest performers, the people who need it the least want it the most. So it's kind of a paradox for how things work. So at Work on Your Game, one thing that draws people to me is the fact that most of the people I work with these days, man, are not athletes. They understand sports, but they never played a sport.
Yeah.
So when they see someone like myself, I come from the sports world, but they see, all right, this guy's not just walking off the basketball court talking about sports cliches that they don't understand. They see I put in the work on the business side of things. And I'm taking the principles from the sports world, applying them to the business world, but I know what I'm talking about when we're having a business conversation. And I think what people really enjoy is my direct style communication, and my skill is being able to break things down and put them back together. That's my superpower. So I can look at someone's situation and say, all right, here's where you're at. Let's break this down into into all the pieces, and let's put this back together in a way that actually makes sense for you to get the outcome that you want to get. And they also know that there's nothing off limits when they have a conversation with me, whether we're talking personal life or talking business life, whatever you want to talk about, we can talk about. And they know they can bring it to me, and I'm willing to discuss it because they see me talking about anything and everything on my own platform. So they know they can bring it to me if they want to talk about something. So all of those things is what makes Work on Your Game unique.
Now, you probably get to talk to a lot of employers, people that are actually in that role of hiring people and choosing who enters their building into their program.
Right.
How important is, so like I've always tried to apply or let players know that there are other reasons. It's like what Phil Jackson said, there's more to life than basketball, but there's also more than basketball to basketball. Like there's other things that we're working on. But in your opinion, I mean, how important is that, having a sports background to some employers? Obviously, you still have to be qualified, because you can't, just because you hooped at one level, but you don't know anything about the craft that you're going at, that doesn't matter. So you still have to have that talent there. But how important is that kind of background to employers?
You know why employers love athletes is for several reasons. First of all, every athlete has a coach. And every professional in anything, business, whether you're working at a job, should have a coach. But in sports, you don't have a choice but to have a coach. I don't care if you're playing a solo sport, tennis, golf, you're playing a team sport, of course you have a coach. We've all been coached. And any employer wants an employee who is coachable, meaning you can let them know when they're making a mistake and they will gladly accept it. They are willing to listen to it, and they will take it when you give them some criticism on their performance and they say, okay, I get it. Thank you for sharing that. Let me go back and do a better job than I did before. Athletes, we have no choice but to take that. Even if we don't like it, we have no choice but to take it. So employers like that, number one. Number two, athletes understand that it's a performance culture and that your performance is measured by what that scoreboard says, not by your personal feelings and not by your emotions. Scoreboard tells no lies. Now, it doesn't tell the whole story, but it doesn't lie. And we all can look at the scoreboard at the end of the day, and you can say whatever you want, but that scoreboard said your team lost. Right? That's period, end of story. And employers like that they're talking to somebody who knows what it is to look at the performance and look at the results. Number three, especially if you're talking to, or we're saying employers. So let's assume this player played high school or collegiate sports. That person had to learn how to manage a schedule. You had to learn how to manage a time clock, because you have school and you have your sport. And depending on the level that you're playing your sport at, especially at the Division I level, is basically like having two jobs.
Yeah.
Right? You have to go to class, and playing that sport is a big deal because you're on a scholarship. And depending on what school you're going to, especially these days, how much is that scholarship worth? All right, that's like $100,000 job, literally. That's $100,000 job that you're holding down while going to class, and you still have to get out on that court and perform. So you understand you have to know how to organize your life and manage your time and manage your schedule. So especially in the sales world, the employers in those spaces love athletes because they know that you have all these things. They kind of come built in. Right, they come standard operating equipment for an athlete coming from that world, and the competitiveness. Mm-hmm. Right, you're a competitor. Sales organizations love athletes because we are naturally competitive. You don't play a sport and you don't want to compete. Right? You don't play any sport if you're not trying to compete. You may be good at it, but if you're not willing to compete, you're definitely not playing at the collegiate level, not even Division III, let alone anywhere else. You have to be willing to compete, and they love people who are willing to compete because every organization, whether internally or externally, there's some kind of competition going on, and that keeps people engaged at any job. So those elements alone, there are probably 30 others I'm not thinking about off the top of my head, but those are some of the main reasons why organizations love athletes.
33 books. If somebody was to just, I'm sure you could answer this in two ways. Like, what is your favorite book that you've written, and what's the first one someone should read to kind of get familiar with all your whole catalog?
Good question. My favorite book is probably whatever the last one was that I wrote. So I always answer that way. So the last one I wrote was my book, The Third Day, which is all about how you show up and give your best effort when you least feel like it, which is something that athletes need because there are days none of us feels like being at practice every day, or even the coaches. All right. So how do you show up on that third day and give your best effort? So that's my favorite because it's the last one I wrote. But if I had to give someone one book that kind of encompasses everything, I would probably get them my book, Work on Your Game. So that one's 250 pages, goes through kind of every aspect of the Work on Your Game framework, because every other book is kind of like a deeper dive into a subtopic of the Work on Your Game umbrella. And that book, Work on Your Game, also kind of narrates over the course of the book why those principles are those principles by telling you a little bit of what I went through that led to that principle existing in my life. So It's not a memoir, far from it, but it explains, okay, I went through this in high school. That's why I now talk about this. I went through that. Now that's why I talk about this. So it kind of explains where it came from and why I am how I am. So probably my book, Work on Your Game.
Tell me, would Third Day be the third day? Would that be good for high school players to read through?
Absolutely. It would be, because that book is all about what do you do on that day? And I even explain this to players. So let's say it's the first day of practice in basketball season. You know when your first day of practice is for next season?
October 16th.
Okay, so October 16th, that first day, everybody's excited, bright-eyed, they're showing up. They want to impress the coach. Maybe they were on the team last year, so they're expecting more playing time. Maybe they're new to the team, so they want to impress and show off to everybody. First day of practice, everybody's excited. Whatever you ask them to do, everybody's doing it enthusiastically because everybody's trying to impress. Now, you're going to kick their butts on that first day because they maybe didn't know what they were getting into. Second day, it's going to be a little bit harder because they have a little bit of soreness from the first day. They didn't know what they were showing up to, but it's still pretty new. Practice still has that new car smell, so to speak. And you kick their butts on that second day because they're still not conditioned yet the way you need them to be. By the third day, already you start to notice.
That's the slippage.
Attitudes.
Yeah.
Right? Attitudes start to show. And the third day, you get people not getting to that line quite as fast as they're supposed to. By the third day, people are not following through as quickly as they were on the first day. So what that third day is about metaphorically is the situation where you realize that this thing that you signed up for is not all fun and games and is not one big party. So what the third day is really about is not the occurrence, but it's actually the decision. What do you do, Matt, in that moment, now that you realize that this is not all fun and games, it's not a big party? Are you going to show up and give your best effort, even though you don't always feel like doing so? That's what the third day is about. So absolutely, I would recommend this to athletes.
I like that. Do you have anything on because I'm going to check out your website a little bit more. Definitely want to get Work on Your Game. The 30 Days to Discipline book behind too. Like that, the great titles, man, because they just kind of catch your eyes and you're wondering like, golly, I need to know 30 Days of Discipline, but ways to get all of your materials. And also, do you do any maybe bundles for teams or anything like that?
Yeah. So first of all, with all of these books individually, I offer bundles. If you go to thirddaybook.com, I offer I think if you go through the entire funnel and you say yes to everything, you'll get 10 books coming to you. So that would be Third Day, The Super You is my book on confidence, which is the yellow book there. Work on Your Game, the mental workbook, 30 Days to Discipline, Bulletproof Mindset, which you can't see, Work on Your Game System Manual, the Mirror of Motivation, 100 Mental Game Best Practices, and the Mental Handbook. I think that's 10. But it's 10 books that would end up in that bundle for one person. Now, as far as bundles for teams, yes, on the Third Day website, I think we have a bundle for 10 books. But if you needed more than that, you can just let me know and we'll make a custom bundle for you and I can get it to you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. I think confidence is something that a lot of players struggle with, and sometimes coaches struggle with too. And I think people parents at times don't think about the confidence of coaches. I think players don't think about the confidence of coaches. I think players don't realize that a lot of times their playing time it depends on the confidence that we have in them, that they can perform, like you said, that even if they are maybe starting off in a bad way, that they can handle it, that adversity, and respond the right way. But confidence is a huge thing. How do you build it? One, in yourself, because I got to imagine it takes a lot of confidence to build this business that you have, and then how do you also help others with confidence?
Great question. So first of all, let's get clear on what confidence is. Confidence is your ability, your belief in your ability to do something. And what I tell people is that discipline creates confidence. Whereas many people go looking for confidence, very few people go looking for discipline, right? Most people only want discipline after they gotten their butts kicked and they realize I got to make some changes here. I need discipline. But when you are disciplined, you show up every single day and do the work. What are you doing? You're earning your right to believe in yourself and your ability to do something. Mm-hmm. And when a player is disciplined, showing up every day in practice, what do? You build confidence in your coach's eyes that you will actually do what you're supposed to do in the game because you prove that you'll do it in practice. So discipline builds that confidence. So if someone doesn't have confidence, the way that you start it is figuring out what's a process that I can follow on a consistent basis that will lead to me being more confident. And in my book, The Third Day, I talk about that a lot. Is how the discipline of dealing with the third day builds your confidence because you know you can deal with whatever situation you come across. And what was the other part of your question there, Matt?
Well, how do you build your confidence? Because I mean, knowing, and I want to talk, the last thing is I want to get into a little bit of your story with basketball. But you leave the basketball world and you're kind of wondering, all right, I have these relationships that, I want to maybe leverage going forward into a brand new business, being an entrepreneur. Like that takes a lot of confidence because you're now you have 33 books. Now you've done 4 TED Talks. Now you have all these clients, but there was a time where you didn't, and you were starting. And how did you harness the confidence to get going there?
Okay, good question. So when it came to me building my own confidence, the reason why I can talk about confidence so confidently is because I know how I felt to not have it, right? There was a time where I did not have confidence and I had to build it both off the court and on the court. I had to build that confidence because I was I got started late in basketball. I didn't start playing until I was pretty much my freshman year of high school is when I started playing basketball every day. And a lot of players have been playing since they were 4 or 5 years old. So I had to build my confidence to take the skills that I could do, on the playground by myself and actually do it in the game when everybody was watching. And it took me time to build that. But it came from, first of all, the experience and in the sports world, sometimes you got to get your butt kicked to get, to know what it feels like to be able to do it to somebody else. Right. So you got to go through that. Like Michael Jordan getting beat by the Pistons before he could beat them. Right. You got to take the losses in order to get the victories. That was one thing. It was the discipline. It was showing up every day, doing the work again. So you built your skills. So you knew you actually had the ability to do the thing. And as far as the business world goes, I tell people, Matt, by being unlucky, I was lucky because I only played Division III college ball. When I got out of college, naturally, my phone was not ringing with a bunch of teams offering me contracts to play professional basketball, right? My first year out of college, I worked at Foot Locker and Valley Total Fitness. My first year, I didn't sign my first contract till a year after I graduated from college. And that's when I started playing overseas. But then, even then, each year, and a lot of people don't know overseas basketball that detail, those contracts are year by year. So at the end of each contract, so this is not LeBron James 5-year contract.
That's right.
This is 1 year, right? And if you had 2 bad practices in a row, it might be 1 week. Right? You could be out of there quickly overseas. That's how quickly things can go. You'll be on a coach class ticket back home. You have a bad game. So each time the season ended or my contract ended, I didn't know if the phone was going to ring again. So in 2009, I really started asking myself, how do I get some control over my life to where I know where my next dollar is coming from and I have control, not some team in some country that I've never been to, they have control. And that's when I started building up my brand and doing the things that led to the TED Talks and the books and making all the content. And at first it was just basketball stuff. My first product was a $4.99 dribbling program made for basketball players. And then I had a shooting one. That was the first thing I sold. 2 products, $4.99 a piece. And I was building my brand on the internet by just putting videos on YouTube. This was specifically basketball. Then around 2010, I started talking about mindset. And I talked about mindset only because the basketball players were asking me about it because they knew my background. Like, man, you got cut from your high school team 3 times. Well, Dre, look, I just got cut from my team yesterday. What can I do? How can I be more confident? How can I build up? Why should I try again? Should I quit? How do you get the confidence to show up next year, tryouts again next year? How do I have the confidence that one day after this whole year of work to be ready to show myself at tryouts? And I started making videos talking about mindset. That basically, because you asked me earlier, how do I get the concepts for writing these books? Many of the books that I've written, all I did when it was time to write them is just go back through the videos that I had made in 2010, 2011, 2013, and said, all right, I'm going to write a chapter on that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. And all I did was just flesh them out. So again, I kind of cheated. I'd already talked about these things.
You'd done the work already. Yeah.
Exactly. So all I did was tell these players, and I would make these little 2 to 5 minute videos. I call them the weekly motivation. And Matt, I did those videos every week for 400 weeks in a row. That was the foundation of what I do now. Those videos. That's how work on your game actually came to exist.
400 weeks in a row?
That's right. And it started with the ball players asking me questions about my mentality because they realized from my background, this is unusual because most players, I mean, you're a coach, players try out in 9th grade, don't make the team, you never see them again, right? They stop trying out, right? They don't make it in 10th grade, or maybe they make the team, they don't play, they quit, and you never hear from them ever again. I kept showing up. So the players noticed that was unusual. Okay, you kept trying. Then you made the team as a senior, didn't play, sat the bench that year. And then you went to college and tried to make the team again. And you played in college. You played D3. Nobody goes pro from D3. You got out of there, and then you tried to play pro. Like, why? Like, most people, so many times I could have quit. I kept going. So these players found that unusual, but they saw a little bit of themselves in me. And what I tell people all the time, Matt, is that for every one LeBron James, you got 1,000 Dre Baldwins, right? So there's only one LeBron. All right, it ain't too many of them. But you got a whole bunch of players who think they might be good enough, but they keep facing these setbacks. And most of them, they fall by the wayside. They quit. The fact that I kept trying led players to just being inquisitive and curious about, hey, what is it about this guy that he keeps trying? And that led to me talking about mindset. That led to, and again, at this time, self-publishing became ubiquitous. So you could publish your own books. Right? You didn't have to go through a gatekeeper. So I could publish my own books. And I have some traditional published books. I have some self-published books. But I was able to kind of put myself out there through the internet. So it was a confluence of events all happening at the same time. And then when it came to the entrepreneurship side, because I had these periods where I wasn't signed to a contract, I could focus on building my brand and putting products out there and writing blogs on my website and building a website and building an email list and creating products and courses and writing more books. And okay, now what am I going to do when basketball is over? Because this is 2011. Basketball might be over now. I don't know. Am I going to get another contract? I might be done right now. That might have been my last time overseas. I didn't know. But luckily, my career went till 2015. But every time I came back home, I was like, I might not leave again. So what am I going to do if the phone does not ring? So I was already thinking about that. So again, the unluckiness, for lack of a better term, of not having this solid year guaranteed contracts led to me building my brand. So when I stopped playing ball, I already had all this momentum of my brand and my business and all of that stuff already in place. And what I tell people in closing here, if I had been signed to the New York Knicks on a 7-year contract, Matt, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation because I would have been just starting building my brand as soon as basketball ended. But because there were so many times that I wasn't sure it would continue, I started building my brand while I was still playing. So the last 5 years of my career, 2010 to about 2015, I basically had 2 jobs at the same time, playing ball and what we now call my business.
And that really makes you different. And you mentioned it a few times because I went and played in Iceland. I think my claim to fame is I was the least paid player in the world. I think that's what my the only place in the world that they would take me was Iceland. And and it was a great experience. I had some bad habits that I created in college that followed me across the ocean over in a story that I had kind of been put into, even though I didn't really cause it to happen, but I was right in the middle of it. That followed me too. And when I was asked to leave, not because of my play, unfortunately, but because of poor living habits, I was asked to leave Iceland. I came back home, and without basketball, I had no clue who I was, what I wanted to do. And unlike you, I spent about 3 years, 9 different jobs, outside of sports, outside of basketball, just pretty lost, and then happened to stumble into a basketball job that at a facility, kind of like what you talked about. That's some of the things you had done, where I was able to coach a bunch of eighth graders. And then that light bulb moment of, oh my goodness, like I love doing this. I think one of the worst things we can do, obviously, yes, there's no wasted time. Like, were there lessons within those failures? And obviously the big lesson is don't live poorly. Have high standards for yourself. Like, don't waste your life, don't waste time. But I didn't have that same drive and mindset that you had, to where, and then another thought, while you were talking, sorry for rambling here, but another thought is, a lot of people look at where you are now, and all the, like, that list of things that you've done. I've never done a TED Talk. I'm interested in it, but like you kind of look at where you are, and I think these younger players might think, like, I can't ever get to where he was, but they don't see the work that you put in and all that time that you spent, and because of that, they may look at you and go, that can't happen. But I just think your story is really impressive, and I appreciate you sharing it.
Well, absolutely. And number one, you should do a TED Talk. I was actually talking to one of my business colleagues this past week. I was at a conference, and he's a speaker, a highly paid speaker, but he's never done a TED Talk, because he's like, I like to kind of talk extemporaneously. I don't like to plan my talk. I say you should do it anyway, because it'll get your name out there. So you should do one. And number two, if you don't mind me asking, what was it you were doing off the court that got you kicked out of Iceland?
So I played at Baylor University from 2000 to 2004. My first 3 years were with us, one coach, and then going into my senior year, one of my teammates shot and killed one of my other teammates, and then whole program pretty much fell apart. Yeah, and so I was a senior on the team with 6 scholarship players, where Coach Drew came in as a 32-year-old and started now the program, which he's done an incredible job. National champs 2 years ago. So, but I realized in that time that really basketball was my whole identity. I thought I had a faith that I'd really grown up in, but really, you open up my chest and there's a basketball there. Well, man, all of a sudden, when I'm going into my senior year, where I've been living this dream, and it's completely shattered. Like, not just our team was kind of different, dismantled, fallen apart. And I realized that this was really my whole life and identity was wrapped up in this game. Up to that point, like alcohol and things like that, partying, weren't a big part of my life at all. And it took about 2 months for my mind and habits to completely shift to where that was my whole focus, was how can I have as much fun as possible, get out of maybe this feeling or this rut that we're in, just laugh a little bit. But it was all temporary, and it was all fake, and I was just really running away from really confronting the truth, which is, outside of basketball, who am I and what do I actually do? What do I believe in? And that whole season, even though there are some, that's kind of what my story is about, the leftovers, is there are some miracles that happen with the team, and we did some amazing things. But the funny thing is, when basketball got better that year, we actually were competitive against Kansas with 6, scholarship players that I'm average. Like, we were all average, but we did some incredible things. Basketball got good, but those bad habits remained. And I went across the ocean, and my first practice in Iceland, they said, "Where'd you play?" And I said, "Oh, Baylor." But kind of a big deal in my head. That's what I thought. And they said, in broken English, the guy said, "Don't they kill people there?" And so, like, this story that I was a part of followed me. But you know what? So did those habits. And unfortunately, they were paying for my apartment, and I had thrown a really big party there, and I was playing well, man. Like, I could have. Partway through, I could have gone to Poland, and I was doing some good things on the floor, and they said, "Don't do that again." And I said, "Yes, sir." And 2 nights later, I threw another one, and the next day, here's your ticket. And I came back home poor because I wasn't making a lot. Started working at some random places and just bitter. And those life patterns really controlled me for about 9 years. So when I get to talk to players about the decisions that you're making now and the habits that you're forging, golly, they're not just temporary. They're for a long time. Like, like think of like a tree having, I mean, do you want to rip a tree out when the roots are shallow, or do you want to try to rip it out when those roots are deep? Well, if it's a bad habit, I'll rip it out when it's really shallow. But in a nutshell, man, that's sorry, that this talks about you.
No, I wanted to know, so I appreciate you.
You asked. It's your fault. You asked.
No, I appreciate you sharing it. Do you tell your players that?
Oh, yeah, they know my story. I mean, obviously, I think I'm at a private Christian school, but even if I was at a public school, I don't like it when people glorify some of the ugly details. So I never go into, this night but I was morally living just a very poor life. And man, if you'd have told me as a 1 year before that happened that in a year's time you would be the host and pulling people that direction, I would have said, you're talking about the wrong guy, man. That's not me. Yeah. But you got to know really where your foundation lies and who it lies.
Yeah, and that's very powerful. I appreciate you sharing that with me. I know you're interviewing me, but I appreciate you sharing that. And I think with your players, especially players these days, they can see everything on the internet. You just share that, it makes you real. You're not just some figure standing up above them, an older guy. They're all kids. They don't know anything. They think they know something. They don't know anything. Yeah. But hearing that from you, I think it humanizes you to high schoolers.
That's a good point. Going up to my interview here at Grapevine Faith, I had never been a head coach before, so I really didn't know what to say going into the interview processes, except for like the X's and O's. I knew I could talk about that. And I'm sitting literally in the parking lot right here, listening to a podcast from a pastor, and the pastor on the podcast stops his talk and says, "Listen, everyone, we need to stop giving edited testimonies." Because I was about to go into this room with these principals, pastors, ADs, and just tell them how great I was. And that, hey, listen, I'm here. I'm the white, I'm the knight coming in, and I'm going to just completely transform. And I've lived this great life. But that's not the truth. And so I basically walked in and told them, like, here are the areas in my life where I've really screwed up. And this is, now the book had come out. So I figured, well, if they read the book, they're going to know everything anyway. But I think that's to your point of with kids or with the people that we're leading, don't hold back, be authentic and real, and let them know that, what they're struggling with, maybe it's different, but in a similar way, you've struggled like them. I think that's helpful.
Right. That's right. 100%.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Ballogy. Manage and measure your players' skill development and increase accountability year-round utilizing the Ballogy app. Boost inter-squad competition with drills backed by the National High School Basketball Coaches Association, including a 40-shot Ballogy skills assessment. Please visit ballogy.com/teams for information on how you can provide this resource for your team. Before you go, the speed round. You get to speak to a lot of people and help transform their lives and lead them. But with the speed round, we're really going to know who you are. You ready?
All right, let's do it.
Favorite ice cream flavor?
I don't even eat ice cream that much. But back in the day, I used to get what was it called? It was Breyer's ice cream. My dad used to get it all the time. I think it was black cherry.
That's black good. Cherry. Yeah. Okay, what if you do go the sweets route? What's your go-to?
My go-to is candy, and my favorite candy of all time is probably Skittles and Twizzlers. But also, I like. Where are you from originally, Matt?
Pennsylvania. Yeah, Berwick.
Okay, so you're familiar with Italian water ice?
Italian ice? Not. Oh, Italian ice. Yeah. Like the
Italian ice.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's one of my favorite sweets. So there's a place called Rita's Water Ice. Okay. It's based out in I think it's based in Trevose. I think that's where they started, Trevose, PA. And they have a lot of places in Philly. And I used to work at one when I was a teen, but they also have places down here in South Florida because a lot of New Jersey and South Jersey and Philly people moved to South Florida. So Rita's Water Ice is one of my favorite sweets, but easier to get is candy. So I got some Twizzlers sitting right here on the desk right now.
I don't get to speak to too many Northerners living down here, and I've lived here since my freshman year in high school. So I've been a Texan longer than I was a Berwickian or a Yankee, but hearing you say water makes me smile.
Yeah, that's
the water. Like I just, it's been a while, but anyway, greatest shooter of all time.
You got to give it to Steph Curry.
Yeah, you
just
do.
The prolificness of it, but in terms of skill, I mean, you could put Ray Allen, you put Larry Bird, you put a lot, but in terms of prolific and the numbers, you got to give it to Curry.
Texting or talking?
Talking. It's easier to text, so whatever scarcity makes value go up.
Greatest basketball movie of all time.
Movie. I'm not a big movie person either, but greatest basketball movie. Basketball movie. I don't know. What basketball movies are there?
You can always pass.
Space Jam.
Oh, there you go. Hey, that is a great movie. And Space Jam 1 definitely over Space Jam 2. Sorry, LeBron. I didn't see
Space Jam.
Oh man, Michael Jordan was by far a better actor. Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
What? Oh, this is interesting. What book would you give someone?
Doesn't matter who it is.
Yep.
48 Laws of Power. That's my favorite book. Robert Greene.
Awesome. Looking that up. And then if it was one of yours, it would be work on your game. Or no? What would your favorite person? Yeah, anybody. Being? Yeah.
If it was a person I didn't know who they were, I'd give them work on your game. Yes. But if I knew who they were, I'll probably pick and choose.
Nice.
More specifically.
Yeah. I would imagine with 33, you can figure out what do they need.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Your favorite place to travel?
Ooh, favorite place to travel. Well, I'm in Miami. I love it here, but I'll say Vegas.
That is nice.
Las Vegas in the summertime.
Nice. Wow, the summertime. Like when it's crazy hot.
I like the heat. Yeah, I hate being cold. I like heat.
Well, that's fair. I mean, you grew up in just a horrible place for in the winter. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we get all 4 seasons. It gets hot in Philly too, but it's all 4 seasons. I like hot all the time. I don't like
fair.
Cold.
That's fair. Yeah. How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
Only thing I drink is water. I don't drink
no caffeine at all, any kind.
No soda, no juice, just water. I drink a protein shake and water.
What kind of protein do you go with?
Pea protein. Vegetable protein. Yeah.
The people have said that absorbs really well. Like whey sometimes can just flush right through. Or what are your thoughts on pea protein?
Whey is from the cow. I don't really like cow's milk. I prefer.
All right,
I prefer to stay away from that stuff.
We're gonna go into nutrition a little bit. What kind of diet plan? What are you on?
I'm plant-based. So I was fully vegan for a while. Probably around 2013 is when I first got into that clean eating and veganism. But then I went overseas. I went to Slovakia, and good luck trying to be vegan over there. All right. You can't even speak the language. So I went back to eating regular food. But then when I came back home in 2015, I stopped playing. I just found I get a meal delivery service. Do they have those out there where you are? Meal delivery services. Yeah. So I've been with the same service for the last 8 years. They bring me plant-based meals. I do still eat meat sometimes if I'm traveling. If I go to Philly, I'll get a cheesesteak. I'll get a burger, things like that. Good for you. Yeah. But overall, I'm a plant-based eater.
Okay. That's what the pea protein made me wonder. And especially when you were against the whey part. Yeah. Let's see. 2 more. Favorite music genre?
Oh, rap music. That's easy.
What era though? Like new, old, 90s? Okay.
No. From about 1993 through 2010 is when I was listening to it heavy. These days I listen to a lot of audios, podcasts, etc. So don't ask me about the new guys.
Okay.
Anything from 93 to 2010, I know it word for word.
Last one. In basketball, who is the GOAT?
Michael Jordan. That's easy.
Pause.
That's the last question.
Oh, you know what? I had a new idea for a question. I'll try it out on you. Do you watch a lot of basketball now?
I follow. I don't watch as much as I used to.
Okay. Well, anybody, and it might be the same guy that you said, but when watching a player, who brings you the most joy to watch?
Most joy to watch? Man, I like a lot of players. And I really like I look at players by their mentality. So there are several. I like Giannis. Yeah. I like Jimmy Butler down here in Miami. LeBron is still very, very good. I mean, he's still great for what he does at his age. Who else do I like? I'm just trying to think of all the players who are in the league.
Sure. But I even think back, like, to me, watching Pistol Pete highlights brought me joy. Watching, the Lakers.
You mean even back then?
Yeah. I think I got to rephrase that question. But like any player that you've watched, who brings you the most joy?
Yeah. So my memory goes back to the 90s.
Yeah.
So I would think Jordan, Scottie Pippen, those Bulls teams were amazing. Charles Barkley played in my hometown, Philadelphia.
Yep.
Kobe Bryant, of course. Kobe's another guy. Who else? Those are the first people that come to mind. Those people. The Kobe Shaq Lakers. I love those teams. Dwayne Wade. Even before LeBron came to the team, Dwayne Wade, he was great. I used to try to steal stuff from him. See, we're about the same size. He's heavier, but we're about the same height. So Dwayne Wade, those are the first people to come to mind.
That's good. Dre, this was so enjoyable. And it's you're the first person. I appreciate you. Like you said, you reached out and I was honored that you would do that. Like I was kind of so excited to get the email, like somebody wants to be on this, like that, that you did that was really impressive. And then, but getting to learn more about you, the path that you've been on, all the things that you have accomplished, like I got so many golden nuggets in this, man.
Well, I appreciate it. And I appreciate you sharing your platform and giving me the opportunity.
If somebody wanted to, they've heard about your books or just wanted to reach out or follow you, what are some great ways for them to do that?
Well, I'm on Instagram. I'm on all the social media, but Instagram, I'm probably most active because I use the stories. So my Instagram is just my name, Dre Baldwin. I have a daily motivation text I send out for free every day. The number is 305-384-6894. I have my assistant. She'll send you an email with all this information in it.
Yeah, I want to get on that.
Yeah, and my latest book is called The Third Day, The Decision That Separates the Pros from the Amateurs. I give people a free copy of the book, physical copy of the book. All you have to do is cover the shipping, and shipping is just $9.95 to the U.S., and you go to thirddaybook.com, thirddaybook.com. The book's free, just cover the shipping. And if you want to get some other books, there's a sales funnel. So if you go through the funnel, you say yes to everything, we'll send you a box with 10 books in it. So we got a lot of books. So that's thirddaybook.com. You pretty much get everything you can see behind me, you'll get in the mail.
Well, man, incredible. I can't wait to look at all those. And I'm definitely interested in the Third Day book for my players. Because I do, you're right on the money. There is something about that time that it separates players. And if we could help maybe some have the internal fortitude or maybe how they were raised or how things they've gone through where that third day comes, they already have the skills to push through. But there's a lot that don't. And so I feel like they are the ones that maybe I could reach better with that. So.
Absolutely, and I'm looking right now. We got a 10 copy bundle, but you might have more than 10 players on your roster. So just let me know.
I can get a couple. I can get a couple of those bundles, and I may. Yeah, man. I think you've got. Hopefully, I'd love to build a friendship, and then you've got a customer, and I think a fan too. I'm trying not to act too inappropriate fan here, but really appreciate your time. This was awesome.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you sharing your platform, as I said, Matt. So I love this. I'm looking forward to this conversation coming out and sharing whatever materials you got and let my audience know about it as well.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.